Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. This will be my 1-month update for the Panning Games project. This is a Pantastic Ladies collaboration. From what I can tell, a lot of people decided to jump in on this project because we're all Hunger Games fans and the whole premises of this project was very appealing. If you did not catch my introduction last month, please go watch it. I will link it in the cards above. But basically, I had 30 seconds to choose 24 items from a box of 50 items, and those would be the products that I'd be working on for the next year. For me, I decided to go with all palettes, and obviously I'm not planning to pan 24 palettes, but they were 24 palettes that I'd never used even once. So my goal was to use 2 palettes every month and just use them. I had no other requirement than to use them at least once during the month. And for the month of August, the palettes I chose were the Buxom White Russian on the Rocks palette that looks like this, and my Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. So yeah, both of these had been in my stash for quite a while. This one around the holidays last year. This one, I don't know when I got this, either at the beginning of 2017 or maybe the end of 2016, I don't remember. Whenever they released it to be permanent was when I got it. And yeah, it's been sitting in here not touched because I'm a panner. So I'm working on Project Pan eyeshadows instead of all the brand new stuff that I'm buying. So this project is kind of forcing me to look at some of the stuff I've been buying and not using and just hoarding for a rainy day. First of all, let me say I didn't use every shadow in either of these palettes, and I wasn't trying to. Sometimes I do projects where my goal is to use every shade in a palette at least once. I just went with whatever I felt like going with for the day. I do sometimes feel like going for a certain color scheme or a certain tone, whether it's warm or cool, and I also use these palettes to mix in with eyeshadows that are currently in projects. So the first eyeshadow palette that I used was this Buxom one. Here's what it looks like on the inside, and it's gorgeous. But it took me exactly 5 minutes of using it to figure something out, and that is, this is embarrassing because this is part of my problem. I need to work on building this skill to prevent myself from buying duplicate eyeshadows. But here's what I discovered in about 5 minutes is that almost all of these shadows, are in this palette. Holy crap, how did I not notice that, you guys? What is wrong with me? White shade, yes. This one's more shimmery. This one's more matte up here, but yeah, white shade, check. This shade is one of those annoying, it's a satin shade with glitter. I don't have a direct dupe for that, but you know, it's also pretty unremarkable. This light pink shade, it's gorgeous. I love it in my transition, but it looks a lot like this one right here. What's that? Georgia. Same thing, same exact thing. This shade right here looks a lot like Just Peachy right here. Pretty close. Yeah, a shimmery taupey brown. I would say that looks a lot like either Luscious or Cobbler, or those two mixed together. Same idea. And then finally a matte kind of plummy brown color with some gold sparkle. Or is it shimmery? I think it's another satin finish, but this one has gold sparkle in it. Looks a lot like Peach Pit right here. Holy cow. I know for a fact that my inability to do that, to see the same color within different palettes, is part of why I buy so many palettes, because I don't look at it and say, I got that. I mean, odds are with the amount of makeup I have, I already got it. And yet I look at this layout and I think, oh, that's gorgeous. I love it. I want it. I need it. I gotta buy it. I picked these two palettes together thinking I was so smart because this one had 18 shades, so that's a big palette, and this one only has 6 shades, so that's a small palette, so they would go together well. They're both kind of warm toned, never realizing that the same shades were in each palette. I got to do better with that. I need to build that skill, because the people that have that ability to look at a brand new release and say, that looks a lot like this palette, that looks like a lot like that palette, can avoid buying it. I do try to do that in Exhibit A, but apparently I need to do better. I thought the quality of both palettes were excellent. I loved the way both performed. I did use, I think, all of the shades in this palette once, except for maybe this one. I just wasn't drawn to this, like, I don't know. I see that glitter and I'm like, it's not a really great performing shadow. It's okay. It doesn't do much for me. The rest of them I thought were beautiful. I love this shade in my transition. I love the shade on my eyelid. This was a great brow bone highlight. They were good. So I did enjoy using them. Besides this shadow here, I used all of them once, and this one, this shade I keep saying that I love, I probably used 3 or 4 times with different looks. So I really like that. I'm gonna post a picture of one of the looks I did using just this palette here. It's not a great picture. For some reason, every time I try to take a picture on the days that I was using these two palettes, it was like 10 hours later and I'd been like walking around outside all day long and I looked like a sweaty hot mess, but I still took a picture so I could have something to show you guys. So this is the picture of me wearing the Buxom White Russian palette. Up next for Sweet Peach. Well, let me start with some of the standouts. I did not use every shadow in this palette. I used whatever I felt like using, and on the first day, I used these 2 shades mostly. I think I used this one in my transition, this one in my crease and outer corner, and then this one on my eyelid. I wanted like a really light look. I was just going to the zoo with the kids. I didn't need drama, and I thought all 3 of these shades were amazing. It's funny because I don't know if you guys follow Thrifty Beauty. Her name's Paige, but she just posted a Pan That Palette finale with this palette. She's been panning it since a year ago in September, and she did an amazing job. She panned every eyeshadow, and she hit pan in every eyeshadow except this one, and I think this one up here. And she flat out said that she was trying to hit pan on this, and then she realized she hated the shadow, so she just stopped working on it. Like, she wasn't going to force herself to hit pan just because she told herself a year ago that she was going to try to do that. So she just talked about how she really didn't like this shade, and this is my favorite of the whole palette. I love this shade. I'm wearing it in my like transition area today. There is this annoying glitter in it that I don't like, but it doesn't really show up anywhere on my eyelid at all. So it's just a pretty pinky peach color. I love this white nectar. It really has a lot of pigment to it. It shows up, and I love this color. Again, it's the same one like the Buxom palette. The next look I did focused more on these 2 shades that I knew I would love, and I did love. And I believe on my lid I had Bellini. It was kind of there was nothing about the look that was really like a showstopper, but the completed look was very pretty. It was just kind of a nice warm eye look. It didn't do much, but it was nice, and they stayed on my eyes all day and they were great. So I didn't get a ton of use. I did use the purple one day on my lower lash line, I think with that second look, and then I had a couple days where I used this palette in conjunction with my Pan That palette or other eyeshadows. The look that I like the best the entire month is the look I'm wearing now, and that uses, yes, Nectar on my brow bone as my brow bone highlight, a combination of Georgia and Candied Peach in my crease and transition area, and then my Pan That palette bronzy color all over my eyelid and smudged underneath my lash line. I like that I'm still working on my Pan That palette, but it's such a different look than what I could get if I just used my Pan That palette. There's no warm peachy shades in my Pan That palette. It's all very bronzy and golden and neutral. And so I love that I can use this palette in combination with my Pan That palette to add a different tone and make it more interesting and wearable in a way that I like it. I also have Koosh on my inner corner, my Super Shock shadow that I love. I love it, I love it. So yeah, that was what I really enjoyed most from using these palettes during the month. I can't believe it's already time to switch these out. I'm not ready to, but that's the deal. That's how this project works. I would love to keep working on those two palettes. I would love to keep them in the bathroom where I could pull them out and use them to mix in with my Pan That palette looks, but it's time to move on. So I think I used those palettes either with one shadow or a couple shadows, maybe 6 times during the month, which isn't a whole lot, but you guys know I have a lot going on with different projects, a lot of different eyeshadows I'm working on, so that was all I could manage during the month. So it is time to pick 2 new palettes for the next month out of the original 24 that I pulled in my intro video. And the 2 that I decided on are this Makeup Revolution, Fortune Favors the Brave, and one of my Smashbox tiny palettes from the Art Love Color trio. There's 3 of these that I have in this project, and this one, it looks beautiful. This one seems to be a very like neutral brown trio. That isn't very exciting to me. That's kind of a lot like the colors that are in my Pan That palette, so I'm not really excited to use that, but I probably will try it at least once to see like how it looks. But this trio looks amazing. Amazing, amazing. And this is a blush. You guys know I'm panning a blush in my Pan That palette, so I probably won't get a ton of use out of this, but I'd like to use it a couple times, especially since I've been wearing a very pink blush all year long. The blush in my Pan That palette is a kind of brighter peachy pink, and this is a very neutral orangey. It almost looks like a bronzer color, so I'm interested to try that out, change it up, and work with a different color for at least a couple days during the month. My Fortune Favors the Brave palette is one that I probably bought, I don't know, 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and I've never used it once. I was looking at this for a couple of reasons. One, again, this has a ton of pans in it, so there's a lot of different colors, and I'm not going to be able to go through every one of them during the month. But I figured a big palette and a little palette is probably a good idea. Plus, I think a lot of these mauve-y, purpley tones will look really great during the month of September. The greens might come out and make an appearance. And again, hopefully I can see if it will pair nicely with some of the other eyeshadows that are in other projects and just mix them all up and use them together. One fun fact that a lot of you guys probably know this, but I thought I would mention, is that when I was doing my how many years of eyeshadows do I own, even though there are 30 eyeshadows in this palette, there is not a ton of product. These pans are small. There is just nothing in here. Now, you guys know me, I'm a slow panner. It takes me forever to use up an eyeshadow, so it's not like it would be gone in a week, but I was thinking I want to use this eyeshadow palette for the month, see if I have any good feelings about it, and maybe consider making this my Pan That palette for next year, since the theme is size matters. We have to have more than 12 pans for if we want to do the Size Matters project with the Fantastic Ladies next year, which I do. I want to do the Size Matters project, but you have to have over 12 pans in your palette. The 2 leading contenders so far right now were a do-it-myself Z palette full of depotted shadows and my Natasha Denona 28 pan blue-brown palette. No, green-brown? Green-brown. But I'm looking at this one and thinking, obviously if I was going to do a custom Z palette or the Natasha Denona palette, I would have a goal to like hit as many pans as possible, but there's no way I could actually pan either of those palettes. There's just too much product in there and I move way too slow. But with these, I don't know, maybe I could actually pan this sucker in a year. I don't know, we'll see. Just some thoughts that are running through my head. So I'm gonna be working on this one a little bit during the month and my Smashbox one. And I will see you guys back here next month with an update and 2 new palettes to work on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.